lips, pale face, breathing in snowflakes, burnt lungs as I taste. Lights gone, days end, struggling to pay rent, long nights, strange men.
Why have you decided to do the memorial today to celebrate Letisha?
Well, on Wednesday was the 10th year since Letisha was tragically murdered. Saturday was a day where it was the nearest day where I could actually hold a memorial. The choice of holding a memorial for 10 years has been from the journey, because the journey's been it's been like a roller coaster of emotions, but there's been so much positives what has actually come out of that journey. And I know through my belief, through God has brought me through my journey, that I thought it was only fitting to actually have a memorial to give thanks for what's all come out of the 10 years since Letisha's been murdered.
What can you tell us about Letisha? What type of person was she?
Letisha was a very innocent young lady. And the reason why I say innocent, not just the fact that she was murdered in 2003, was the way how she was. She still played with the dolls. She still liked to colour, do colouring, and she still wanted to play. She still wanted to come and sleep with me, although she was 17. And that's because she was so young and innocent. It was only because of her youth, I should say, because you've got teenagers, because she was 17 at the time, you've got teenagers who are very forward, and you've got teenagers that are still young children. And Letisha was still a very young child, although she was 17.
Sounds fantastic. How do you think the memorial's gone today?
I think the memorial's gone exactly how I wanted it to go today. And that's with thanks for really being able to be on this journey and still stand and still be able to put something positive back into the community when the community only saw the murders of the two girls as something so negative. And as I said before, because of her innocence, I knew how important it was for me to try and campaign, to try and save lives, to try and educate young people around violent crimes.
And what has that campaign been like? What type of things have you been involved in over the 10 years?
Over the 10 years, I've been involved in working closely with the community, that's with different organisations who are already on the ground working with children, whether that's sexual violence, domestic violence, and crime. And I've been working with around 10 different organisations in the city to try and combat different crimes, gang crimes, and all the different concepts what comes around gang crime.
I see. What can you tell us about your feelings towards the people responsible for the killing of your daughter?
From the beginning of the 10 years, when Letisha was murdered, my initial thought, and still is the thought, all I wanted was justice. And when I meant justice, meaning that the people who carried out this crime would actually be put away for doing this crime. My feelings towards them, because of what they've actually done, has made me look at two sides, because throughout my journey of 10 years, I've identified that in violent crime, there are two people in violent crimes. There's the perpetrator and there's the victims. And a lot of people seem to think it's just the victims, but perpetrators' families suffer. And I know through my crime in particular that there were 4 young boys who were convicted for the crimes. Now, only one person can pull a trigger. There was 4 people. There was one person who was the lookout. He was the one to make the phone call. And there was 3 other young boys in the vehicle. One pulled the trigger, one encouraged someone else. One encouraged the driver, well, not the driver, the shooter, and then there was the driver. So there was 3 people in that. Now, the 4th person who really pointed out, the reason why I say this person in particular, he was 17 at the time. He was the person to make the phone call to say the person they're looking for is coming outside this party. Now, what that person didn't say, so were innocent people. This is how the crossfire of the girls were shot, because the target ran behind the young girls as a human shield. Now, because this young person in particular, who was 17, he received 28 years and not 35 years, only because of age. Now, by identifying, seeing him in court, I was in court for 6 months. Now, during that 6 months court case, on the very last week, this young individual who was 17 decided to take the stand and say, well, I'm not going to do the time for something what I haven't done. Now, you and I know if you pull a trigger and it kills someone, you've committed a crime. However, this individual didn't pull the trigger, but without that phone call, that crime wouldn't have took place. Now, because of knowing how naive he was, because he wasn't innocent, because a lot of people seem to think because you pull a trigger and kill someone, you've committed the crime. But it's about the collective organisation what actually joins together to create that crime, which this young individual was part of that crime. Now, him in particular, as I said, he's the person, as well as the 4 girls who 2 were injured and 2 were murdered, is why I go and educate young people on the implications on their choice, because everyone has a choice, and it was choice what made that young boy make that phone call. Now, without that phone call, that crime wouldn't have took place. And I know, by knowing that, too many young people are involved or think they're not involved in gang crime or violent crime because they're basically on the fringes. However, when something happens so serious, you will do the same sentence as the person who's pulled the trigger. So how do I feel? My feelings is that there's no winners to violent crime. And knowing there's no winners, there's nothing to celebrate that these people were locked away. Because although they were locked away for 28 and 35 years. And 28 and 35 years is just a lesson in life. It is not a life sentence. I have no bitter feelings. I think that the cause, their environment, their parenting, there's a lot of issues around it. Basically, I feel sorry for them in the sense that they clearly cannot see from their choice what has actually happened, and they have been a part of it.
Interesting. Today, I could see for myself, you've got, no ends of support. How have you managed to get through the 10 years? Who has been your stone, your rock over this period of time?
My family support. My sister, 10 years ago in particular, said she would stand by me. And it's 10 years. It was 10 years on Wednesday. And she still stands by me. She still supports me. She's still there. She's still on the other end. My mum also. My mum rings me every day and supports me in that way. So I say family and my belief of God.
And your plans for the coming year? Any projects that you're working on?
My project what I'm working on at the moment, I'm working with an organisation in London who challenge young people as young as primary school to actually go in and actually have a resource to actually equip young people as young as primary school with their awareness on their choice around violent crimes. because a lot of people seem to think that it's the secondary schools, but it's not solely secondary schools. Primary schools has also problems around violence crimes. So that's my challenge for the coming year.
And one of the projects that you're working on is geared towards girls.
Yes.
What's the name of that charity and what does that involve?
Well, my charity is called the Precious Trust. It's built up through people in the university, the previous Home Secretary, and also some other organisations. Now, there's one route of challenging violent crime, and one route is everyone throws resources into that. However, although there's challenge it on the forefront, there's also the exit. So my charity aims to give young women in particular, because young women are missed out on violent crimes, but a lot of those violent crimes have actually been made or carried out through young girls manipulating young boys into situations where young boys have been killed. Now, knowing that they need help also, because there's rehabilitation for young boys in gangs, but young women and women in particular are missed out. So it's about giving them tools, and when I mean tools, a tool to be able to exit out safely, meaning although they might be in a particular environment, say in Birmingham, once they've got a trade of a tool, they can exit and move to a different city, town, country, and be able to look after themselves.
I'd like to thank you for being so open with us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fly, for angels to fly, to fly, to fly.